بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأنجلين بهم نتولى ومن أعدائهم نتبرأ إلى الله. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
It was mentioned yesterday that we talked about the hadith, which is the wasiyat of the Holy Prophet to his companion Abazar. It so happens that once Abazar he comes to the mosque of the Prophet in Medina, and there he finds no one present. He says it's going to be a good opportunity. I'll have a little chat, a private talk with him. And this is the private talk which Abazar has with the Holy Prophet, which we are reciting every day. It was mentioned yesterday that the Holy Prophet says to him that there will be a nation who will enter the heavens, and from the heavens they will see up, and they will find their own people who were with them in this world. They've been blessed with so many favors, so many blessings, and that these blessings are endless, so much so that they are getting tired of receiving all these great blessings now. Getting tired in the heaven, it doesn't exist. No one gets tired in the heaven. What is meant over here is that endless, never-ending blessings and favors upon those mu'mineen. And there Rasulullah says that who are they? What was the difference between the two? There mentions that when they were full, they were fasting. When they had quenched their thirst, you found them thirsty. When you were relaxing, they were standing in worship. So that is the reason why they've been excelled, and all these special favors were granted to them. We talked a little bit about the importance of salah and how to enhance the sweetness of this worship and prayers in our day-to-day life. Today, the Holy Prophet says, Ya Abazar, Tuba li ashabil anbiya yawm al-qiyamah yahmilunaha فيسبقون الناس إلى الجنة ألا وهم السابقون إلى المساجد بالأسحار وغير الأسحار. Says that there are some who will be the flag bearers, who will be the foremost in heading and moving towards the heaven on the day of judgment. Then he says there are those who were foremost in the mosques. That is, when it came to services, worships, or the activities that we have over here, for example, this Majlis which is established, here he says that they were foremost. They took heed in coming to these places. So it seems that it is a very important opportunity that Allah grants, and not everyone is successful in that. And may Allah make it as such that you also be blessed with a mosque over here, and these gatherings be taken place in that own space of yours, inshaAllah. So here says that lucky are those on the day of judgment who will be the flag bearers, who will be holding the flag before all and heading towards the heaven. The thing which we learn over here is that when it comes to the talk about the hereafter, we have to be careful that this dunya does not attract us or becomes a barrier in us moving towards the hereafter. Yesterday it was mentioned that there are different stages, and the key stage one that we have in this field of perfection is to remove that ghaflat. Ghaflat, it's that forgetfulness, it's that neglectfulness. It has to be removed. And once we remove that ghaflat, you top it up with ma'alim, with the sciences, knowledge of knowing Allah and the hereafter. And the entire plan that we have is that focus has to be towards akhirah. And when we focus towards akhirah, dunya becomes simple. It shouldn't be as such that focus should be on dunya. When we focus on to dunya, akhirah, it's gone. And that neglectfulness, forgetfulness towards akhirah increases. So for that, and inshallah in the continuation of this same hadith, here Rasulullah tells and mentions a few tips of how we should be removing this forgetfulness. When it comes to competing for this worldly day-to-day tasks, says you shouldn't be doing that, it's not desired. But when it comes to akhirah, here says Sa'u ila maghfiratin min rabbikum, that is, you must make heed, you must try to be first. There should be a competition when it comes to the issues relating to akhirah, when it comes to the recitation of salawat, when it comes to the saying of the azan, when it comes to the time of prayers, try to be the first one. That is what Quran says. There has to be that competition, and many times you find that when it comes to this competition, we say that we don't want to fall into ujb, into riyah, into show off, etc. So we'll say the prayers away, aloof from the people, so that I don't fell into pride. This is also wrong. That if it is something which is good and people can be attracted, we can also perform it in a place where people also join us, can see us. But at the same time, we have to monitor our performance, that it shouldn't be for the sake of showing to the people. So that pride can be controlled, and at the same time we do it in a way that others are attracted. In schools, in colleges, in the workplace, we find that there is a group, there are some peers, there are some friends, and friends, they copy the others. One of the boys, one of the girls in the class becomes a role model for the others. The same way, we have to find someone in the fields of spirituality, in ma'anaviyat, where others become our role model. And definitely there are some who we can follow. I'll give you an example. In the 1990s, 1998, Ayatollah al-Islam al-Najafi, among the Maraja al-Taqweed who used to live in Qom, he passed away. Lived for about 98 years. He used to lead the prayers, the 5-time prayers in the sacred shrine of Hazrat Ma'asuma at Qom. And the crowd there was thousands who used to join him. He lived in Qom for more than 5 decades. That is, he moved from Najaf to Qom. And the beauty of this noble man was that every morning, before the adhan of Fajr, he comes to the shrine of Hazrat Ma'asuma, is the first one to enter this noble shrine. In the winter, when we had heavy snowfalls and the door was sometimes opened late, we found this Sayyid with his abba on his head, standing at the door, waiting for the door to open to get in. So that was a beautiful performance. And students living in Qom at that time, when they see this beautiful performance of this noble man, they also get moved and they also want to come to Haram at that time. So that is a beautiful performance. The same thing is over here. That is, when you establish a place and you become foremost, being the first one, that is desired. That is what Quran says, that وَسَارِعُوا إِلَىٰ مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. That is, you have to make heed, you must be quick in getting to فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Our Quran says that when it comes to khairat and the good, try to be the first one, compete. That competition is desired when it comes to spirituality. So, here Rasulullah mentions the importance of a place of worship, and again how a person should be competing in getting into the places of worship. And then he says that some, on the day of judgment in the heavens, they will see that their fellow brothers who were coming to the same mosque where they used to visit, they've been granted a better position. And then he says, إِنَّ لِلْمَسَاجِدْ أَوْتَادًا. That is, indeed for mosques there are some pivots. Awtad is the plural of watad. Watad in Arabic means nails. Here means supporters. That is, every mosque has some strong, staunch supporters. Says, for these people, al-malaikatu julasa'uhum. The angels, they sit with them. إِذَا غَابُوا اِفْتَقَدُوهُمْ وَإِنْ مَرِضُوا عَادُوهُمْ. When they are not seen, people, they go in search of them. Where are they now? Or when they fell asleep, when they fell ill, you go to see them. They have fallen ill. And then talks about them, al-julusu fil masajid li-intizar as-salat ibadatun. That sitting in a mosque, waiting for the prayers, it's worship. That is, if the time of prayers is 6 o'clock, we come to the mosque a few minutes earlier, we wait for the time to come. That is respect that we give to the worship itself. It's among the qualities of mu'mineen that it isn't as such that the time of prayer comes and then we get up, do a wuzu and then we come to prayers. This is showing disrespect to prayers. If we want to respect prayers, that beautiful gem, before it arrives, we have to be ready. Like the guest who comes, and before the guest comes to our home, we've got everything prepared. This is the etiquette that we have for prayers. وَقَالَ مَنْ كَانَ الْقُرْآنَ حَدِيثُهُ. That is, if we wait for the prayers, that is worship. And then if our talk becomes Qur'an and our place of, our home, it becomes the mosque, Allah will make grant us 2 houses in the heaven, just for those 2 reasons that he has mentioned over here. That is, speech becomes Qur'an and our place, acquaintance, becomes the mosque. He then continues, it was mentioned yesterday that ghaflat, forgetfulness, negligence, it has to be removed. And that to be removed, there are all these different tips that are mentioned. One of them, here Rasulullah says that, Ya Abazar, اخفض صوتك عند الجنائز وعند القتال وعند القرآن. 3 tips are being mentioned, that how we should be talking and when. Here he says that when it comes to funerals, that if someone passes away, what is the etiquette of being part of a funeral? Rasulullah says that you have to be very gentle. That is, when you talk very gently. Overall, the etiquette, the adab that we have when you converse and communicate to each other, you have to talk very politely. Here he says that when you participate in a funeral, be much more quieter than you are, much more gentle. And then says, اخفر صوتك عند الجنائز وعند القتال. Or if it is war, a battle, then also don't yell, don't talk loud, be very polite, be very gentle. And that is for the confidentiality issues, that if we talk too much, it may so happen that we may leak the information that is with us. So the instructions over here are to keep quiet. One of the other things is that is, if we do not talk a lot, and if we observe this calmness and quietness, our brain works more. That is, the more we talk, we find that the intellect of an individual doesn't work as it should be working when a person is talking too much. A person, he comes to Marhum Allama Tabai and he says that, Ustad, what shall I do? That is, when I stand in prayers, my attention doesn't wander everywhere. He says that talk less. That is, if you don't talk too much, you will find that your attention will be focused when you stand in prayers. That is, when we talk too much, it is that energy that Allah has given to us, it's just wasted for no reason. And someone who shouts and yells and talks, that energy is also wasted a lot and more mistakes are made. If we talk politely, words will be calculated, message will be given in a proper way, and the person listening to it also accepts it. And then he says that, Ya Abazar, إِذَا تَبِعْتَ جَنَازَةً فَلْيَكُنْ عَقْلُكَ فِيهَا مَشْغُولًا بِالتَّفَكُّرِ. Very beautiful. He says that when you are following a funeral, says that don't talk at that time. Your mind should be constantly thinking. What should you think? That is, فَلْيَكُنْ عَقْلُكَ فِيهَا مَشْغُولًا بِالتَّفَكُّرِ وَالْخُشُوعِ وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّكَ لَائِقٌ بِهِ. With that mindset that very soon you will be joining him. We have to participate in that funeral. Not that in the funeral we talk to each other, have fun using phones, games, etc. That is against the etiquette that we have. So, here mentions that this ghaflat which comes across throughout our life, this negligence, neglectfulness, forgetfulness, it has to be removed. And how does that come across? It's by too much of work, day-to-day tasks that we have in this dunya. Now in our computers, what we do, that once in a few days we have this disk cleanup. All these cookies and all these temporary files, we have to remove them so that the system works properly. The same thing is with our system, that in this busy schedule that we have every day, so many things they get attracted in us, all these different cookies and temporary files, and they need to be rebooted, cleaned up every now and then. To clean that, Rasulullah mentions that in a funeral, participate and don't talk. Think that is, very soon we'll be joining that person who has passed away. With that mindset, you'll find that your system is getting cleaned. But if we participate and have that opportunity and talk and waste that opportunity, that is something we've lost, and our system is also not clean. Now, he mentions a lot more regarding how we should be participating over here. When it comes to talking, and how we should be talking, Quran says that وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ إِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ. That is, when you talk politely, be gentle to each other. Why? Allah says, because the voice which everyone hates is the braying of a donkey. That is, someone who talks loud is as if it is like the braying of a donkey. So the initial instructions we have, that is, we have to be gentle to each other. When it comes to a funeral, again, it has to be much lower, that is, we don't talk at all. And the best of all, it's to observe silence as much as we can. That way we don't get all this trash pumped up into our system. Says that, Ya Abazar, if you follow the funeral, it should be as such that your mindset, that very soon you will be joining them. The same thing can be seen regarding prayers. Prayers that Allah has said, yesterday we talked about it a little bit, and that is, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. That is, prosperous are the believers, they are those who are fearful in their prayers. We've got khawf and we've got khashiyat. Khuzu and khushu, which you've heard. So what does both of them mean? Fright, fear, humble. That is, when we stand to say our prayers, first of all, it's that etiquette, the shell of the prayer, which is takbiratul ihram, recitation of the surahs, ruku and sujood, qunut, tashahhud, etc. That is the shell of the prayer. So when we stand for prayers, all those etiquettes which are the shell of the prayer, if they are observed, that is that khawf which we find in it. Khushu is that heart of an individual which has to be scared, which has to be afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of God? God is nothing to be afraid of. He is all mercy, He is all compassionate. Quran says, وَمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ. The station of Allah, the position of Allah, the rank which He possesses, that rank is fearful, that rank is scary. So that has to be the mindset when we stand for prayer, and that is again one of those places which removes this ghaflat, negligence in our system, that is when we stand for prayers. And after that, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, his adab when he follows a funeral says, كان النبي إذا تبع جنازة غلبته كابة وأكثر حديث النفس وأقل الكلام. That is, when Rasulullah follows a funeral, he follows it in a way that he was reserved in himself. That is, talking to himself, not to others. And talking about himself, that is his own nafs, his own soul. And that is again the etiquette we find for the Holy Prophet when he participates in a funeral. Then he continues saying that the second thing is, one, when you participate in a funeral, you have to be very careful that you don't talk. And then says that اعلمنا. That is, when the recitation of Quran, when Quran is being recited, we have to be quiet. It shouldn't be as such that Quran is being recited from here and we talk to each other. We play with our gadgets, we play with the phones, etc. Quran, it has respect in itself. So the mindset when the recitation of Quran is being recited is that we assume that what we are listening to, it's coming out from the lips of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the second thing which Rasulullah mentions, that when it comes to the recitation of Quran, listen to it quietly and try to concentrate on what is being mentioned. The same thing is found in the Holy Quran, that وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنْصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. That is, when Quran is being recited, be quiet and listen to it carefully, so that Quran, it has an effect in our system. Now normally all these things they don't have, because we don't take notice of these etiquettes that should be observed. وَإِذَا سَمِعُوا مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ تَرَى أَعْيُنَهُمْ تَفِيضُ مِنَ الدَّمْعِ. Quran says that if you look into the qualities of mu'mineen, some of the reciters, they recite Quran in such a beautiful voice, in such a beautiful way, that although we don't understand what he's reciting, but we find that tears they shed down from our eyes. That is because of those etiquettes that are observed. The reciter has observed it, he recites it in a beautiful way, with wuzu, and in a good posture, and the listener also has full concentration with that assumption that he is listening to the word of God, which is being uttered through the lips of the Prophet, and that is when it has that effect. So Quran also we have to give a lot of importance to, and how the etiquette that Rasulullah mentions over here is that when Quran is recited, don't talk, be quiet. Continues and says, Ya Abazar, اعلم أن كل شيء إذا فسد فالملح ضبابه. So the talk was ghaflat, which is negligence, forgetfulness, which comes across in our system, that has to be removed. And for that Allah, He has created this whole system of birth and deaths, that a person dies, we have to participate in that funeral. Now, it's very beautiful. If you look into the wasiyah that we have for Amir al-Mu'mineen to his sons at the time of his death, he talks about deaths. That is, death should be as such that an ibrat, a lesson. Someone has died, that should be a lesson to us. That is, there is a generation that is living, there is a generation that is coming, and we are not part of the generation that is coming, and that what intervenes between the two of us is death. So death, it's a lesson that we have to look into that death with a magnifying glass, that it is a station which is taking us towards the hereafter. So if it is taking us to the hereafter, then what lesson do we get? By someone dying. That is, we have to look into our own performance much more than what we were doing. There is another shocking hadith over here, Rasulullah mentions, I'll quote that when we come to that point, and he says that the body that is being carried to be laid to rest, don't think that normally we don't take notice of these things. Whenever death is mentioned, we never assume that we will die one day. We always think this person, that person is going to die. We never think that we will ever die. That is the human being, human nature. And all of that is because of that ghaflat and forgetfulness. Rasulullah says that that body which is being carried to be laid to rest, the etiquette you observe is that think that it is you who is in that coffin. And that you are crying and pleading that an opportunity be given to be brought back to life to correct all the wrong that we have done. So he says with that mindset, don't think that it is a neighbor, a friend, a relative who has passed away. Think that it is you yourself in that coffin. And we are asking Allah to give us an opportunity to come back. And when we return from that funeral, it is as if another life has been given to us. So that has to be the mindset when it comes to funerals. Says, Ya Abazar, اعلم أن كل شيء إذا فسد فالملح دواؤه. That is, everything which is, when we think it's going to get rotten, it's going to rot, we apply salt to it so that it doesn't rot. Then he says, what if the salt rots itself? There is no cure for that then. That is to say that Allah has made this death a lesson, recitation of Quran a lesson, or that battle, the war, a lesson so that we control our tongues. We don't talk too much, we be gentle, we be quiet on these different occasions. And we think and remind ourselves of what is going to happen to us after this. And that reminder is the salt which is applied to this idea of ghafla which is getting rotten. Then he says that if we make that idea rot itself, then what is the cure? So that ghafla has to be removed all the time. Forgetfulness has to be constantly removed. فَالْمِلْحُ دَوَاءُ فَإِذَا فَسَدَ الْمِلْحُ فَلَيْسَ لَهُ دَوَاءُ. Says, إِذَا أَنْتَ حَمَلْتَ جَنَازَةً فَكُنْ كَأَنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْمَحْمُولِ. That is, when you are carrying that body to lay to rest, think that it is you yourself. وَكَأَنَّكَ سَأَلْتَ رَبَّكَ الرُّجُوعَ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا فَفَعَلَ. And that is, you are asking Allah that you want to come back to this world, and that wish of yours has been granted. فَانْظُرْ مَاذَا تَسْتَأْنِفْ. And now you have to see how you start your new life. ثُمَّ قَالَ عَجَبٌ لِقَوْمٍ حُبِسَ أَوَّلُهُمْ عَنْ آخِرِهِمْ. That is, it is amazing for those people who don't think of what they are and where they are, and for the generations to come, as we just explained. وَإِذَا نُودِيَ فِيهِمْ الرَّحِيمِ وَهُمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. He then continues with the same hadith. That is how we should be observing this talk. Says that one of the other etiquettes that is we need to observe in socializing with each other, we talk, we laugh, we cry. Now when it comes to laughing, how much do we laugh? How do we laugh? Can we just laugh away, as we've got all these TV channels that you just laugh, ha 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 ha, that's all the time? Or you've got these food fights, you throw a pancake on the other person, that you laugh, ha ha, for no reason. Or is that permitted? So most of the channels nowadays that we see, it's against the teachings that we have. It says, إِنَّ مِنَ الْجَهْلِ الضَّحْكِ مِنْ غَيْرِ عَجَلٍ. Rasulullah says that among the signs of ignorance is that you laugh for no reason. For no reason you laugh. قَالَ وَكَانَ يَقُولُ. And then he says that when you want to laugh, don't laugh as such that all your teeth are out. That is, mu'mineen, when they laugh, Rasulullah says, they laugh for some reason. Someone has said something nice, a joke, then you laugh. You laugh, you smile. Not that you just continue laughing for hours and hours. That is against the teaching. And then continues, كَثْرَةُ الضِّحْكِ تُمِيتُ الْقَلْبِ. That is, if you laugh too much, it will kill your heart. Kill your heart doesn't mean this pump, that it will kill us, die. No. The whole idea is that heart, in Quran, whenever you find sadr, whenever you find ruh, wherever you find qalb, it is the same thing. It is the ruh of an individual which has to be alive all the time. And all these different things that come across in our life which makes ourselves forgetful have to be constantly removed. by the recitation of Quran, by participating in a funeral, etc., etc. That way we find that the soul that Allah has given to us is constantly polished. It's constantly revived. Here says that كَثْرَةُ الضِّحْكِ تُمِيتُ الْقَلْبِ. If you laugh a lot, it will kill your heart. كَثْرَةُ الضِّحْكِ تُمِيتُ الدِّينِ كَمَا يُمِيتُ الْمَاءَ الْمِلْحَ. That is, if you laugh a lot, it's going to be harmful for your religion, for your faith. It's going to kill your faith. Like salt, when you pour it, when water is poured in salt, the salt dissolves, it's all gone. Too much of laughter also has that effect. It will kill our heart, it will kill our soul, and that distance between us and Allah that will increase at all times. Says Al-Mu'min bushruhu fi wajhih wa huznuhu fi qalbih. When you look at mu'mineen, they are smiling, they are good. But deep down in their heart, they are upset. And the reason for that distress of theirs is as to whether they have performed the duty between them and their Lord. That Allah has assigned certain tasks to them. So have they been successful in fulfilling those tasks or not? So mu'min, if you see he is smiling, he is happy, it doesn't mean that he hasn't got any problems. No, it's like these oceans, or sometimes you find storms, but below it's all something else. So when it comes to participating in these gatherings, Quran is recited, silence has to be observed. When we talk to each other, we have to be gentle, we have to be quiet. That is the etiquette that we find, which is taught to us by Rasulullah. In Islam, adab, it plays a very vital role all the way through. That is, when we are obedient to Allah, that is that adab that we show towards Him. When we bow down and sajda before Allah, that too is that beautiful character that we show before Allah, that we have submitted wholly and solely to you and no one else. And if a person is mu'addab, he possesses all these beautiful etiquettes and qualities, finding salvation for him is much easier compared to someone who's arrogant. Someone who's arrogant, who doesn't bow down, who hasn't got that adab, for him, reducing the distance between him and God is tough. Although not impossible, but it's tough. Looking into this tragedy of Karbala, Hur, the companion of Abu Abdullah, is someone who is against Abu Abdullah. He is someone who has opened up the entire scene of Karbala for Abu Abdullah. The crime he has is huge. If the massacre of Abu Abdullah does take place, we can say that it was because of Hur. He opened up the whole scene. When Abu Abdullah arrives at Karbala, they have a debate, a talk, the two of them, Abu Abdullah with Hur. It is time for Azan. Imam says that Hur will break now. Me with my 70 men, I'll go and say my prayers. You with your men, you go and say your prayers over there. Hur says that, Yabna Rasulullah, you want to lead prayers and you want me to lead prayers somewhere else? That is impossible. You are the son of the Prophet and I will join you. That is adab, manners, etiquettes. And if this one news was given to Umar Sa'd ibn Ziyad, that was sufficient for Hur to be beheaded. That how come he offered his prayers with his enemy. So that was that first adab which he showed. After the prayers, they have a talk, that is Abu Abdullah with Hur. And the two of them here, they come to a point when Abu Abdullah, he is in rage, he is heated. And then he says, Sakalatka ummuk Hur, that is, may your mother cry on you, that is, may you die, that is death to you. He said to Hur. Hur in reply says, Yabna Rasulullah, you said that to my mother. I cannot say the same words to your mother when your mother is the daughter of Rasulullah. That is adab, etiquettes, manners which he observes. Now with this mindset, which is this etiquette which he has, we find and see that on the day of Ashura, he is shaken. People, they come and say to her that what is it that we find you between the hell and the heaven? Why are you so much shaken? If someone said to us that who is the strongest in Kufa, we would say it's Hur. But what is it now? Hur says, I see myself between the hell and the heaven. Hell, I will not go, except heaven, I will not let go from my hands. He rides his horse, gallops towards Abu Abdullah with his hands on his head. Says, is there any way that I can repent, Ya Abu Abdullah? Imam says, Allah has forgiven. Allah will accept your repentance. Step down, Hur. Hur says, Imam, I will be a better servant for you on this horse riding. Allow me to serve you as I am. That is adab, that is the etiquette, the manners which he observes. Or for example, if you look into the ruins of Sham, it may have been the days like these days that we are in, that this caravan, it moves from Karbala all the way to Sham in the most severe conditions. And the prisons of Sham, the reporters, they say that it wasn't as such that there was a ceiling and there was heating and cooling in that prison. No, there wasn't any ceiling in those prisons. And the temperatures in Sham are in extremes during the day and during the night. So during the day they've got hot sun on their head, and in the night it's cold. As a result of which they have blisters on the skin. All of these prisoners, who are the prisoners, the women and children. Wife of Yazid says to Yazid, her name, that everyone has seen these prisoners, allow me to go and visit them myself. Yazid says, okay, you can go and see them, but don't forget, you are the first person of this land, first lady here, and those official formalities must be observed when you go and visit. That you must be seated on a high chair because you are the first lady. She says, okay. Comes to the prisons. Zainab and Kulthum knew that who she is. She was someone who was raised, taught by Zainab al-Kubra in the house of Amir al-Mu'minin. She comes to the prisons, addresses them and says, from where are you? Zainab says, we are from Yathrib, from Medina. The moment she says from Medina, Yazid's wife, the first lady, she steps down and sits on the floor. That is that adab. Zainab says, why did you sit on the floor? She says, as mark of respect to people from Medina. Then says that in Medina, do you know the house of Ali? Zainab says, yes, who could know that house of Ali better than me? Says that, what about Hussein? Says Hussein, the head which you see on the coats of Yazid hanging, that is the head of Hussein. You don't know that? Then she says that, what about Zainab? Says, you recognized everyone, you did not recognize Zainab? Upon listening to this message from Zainab and Kulthum, she runs into the courts of Yazid without any head covers, and then says that, is this what you've done? And there the tactics change, the policies of Yazid change as a result of what his wife did in the courts. Journey to Sham, journey in the duration of stay in the prisons, it is tough, it is very difficult. If you look into the sayings of the performance of one of the noble, he says that we've got different phrases in Maqatil that is what happened in Karbala, the sacrifices, the bloodshed, the killing, the wounding, the oppressions, taking into captivity, burning down of tents, etc. Everything is there. When this alim is reciting the majlis, and he comes to this point and says that دخلت Zainab bintu Ali ala ibn Ziyad, Zainab, the daughter of Ali, enters into the courts of Ibn Ziyad, that alim says, stop, that is sufficient. That one phrase for us is enough to cry. Why is it that it hasn't got anything, no bloodshed, no pain, no affliction, no oppression can be seen in that one sentence? He says, that is enough. Zainab, daughter of Ali, how can she enter into the courts of Ziyad? Zainab, with all that respect, when her neighbor says that I was her neighbor for 7 years, I never knew whether she lived in this house next door to mine. That is Zainab al-Kubra. Ala la'natullah ala al-qawm al-zalimin. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إلهي بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها يا الله 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 اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولمن وجب له حق علينا ولمن وصانا بالدعاء ولجميع أمة محمد وآل محمد. Ilahi, hasten in the return of our Imam, our Master, our Hujjah. Ilahi, grant fame, honor, dignity to Islam and Muslims worldwide. Disgrace to kufr, shirk and nifaq worldwide. The aims of Imam, give us the opportunity that we fulfill them. Make it as such that we become better servants of the Imam. May we be enlisted among the best of his supporters. Our children to be enlisted among the best of Muslims and for generations to come. All those who are ill and ailing, especially those present in this majlis. All the hajat which everyone has, especially those present over here. And those who have hopes in this majlis, all of them to be granted. وَعَجِّلْ فِي فَرَجِ مَوْلَانَا صَاحِبِ السَّمَاءِ.